Greetings and a warm welcome from me, astrologer Patrick Arundell. Today, in the latest of my deep dive videos, I'm going to explore the Pisces full moon, which occurs across the 30th and the 31st of August, depending on where you live. This also happens to be a supermoon and a blue moon. So I'm going to share with you about what a full moon is, what a supermoon is, what the blue moon's about, but also what makes this particular Pisces full moon so unique. And it does have some very powerful characteristics that are threaded into it, and I will share with you the event chart wheel so we can understand what the next 2 weeks collectively represents for us all. I'm then going to go on to share with you from Aries through to Pisces your zodiac forecast, which you can relate to in terms of your sun or your ascendant. If you're new here, it's lovely to have you with us. If you have any thoughts, please do share them. I do try to interact with as many as possible. This is very much a community. If you're a returning visitor, it's lovely to have your company again, and I'd be honoured if you would subscribe. If you have subscribed already, I very much appreciate your support. Now, before I go on, year 2023 is racing by and 24 speeding towards us. If you order your year 2024 personal horoscope forecast now from me, based on your unique birth data, I will prepare for you the rest of 23 free of charge. But in my special package, you'll also get 30% off and your character analysis report, your life roadmap. This will help you to gain searing insights into the patterns that have been playing out in your life in a repetitive way, but also get a much more intimate understanding of them. Please see the link below for more. And also, if you'd like to know what your zodiac sign forecast for year 2024 holds, please see the link for the playlist below. But first of all, let's just explore what a full moon is. If we consider the sun is in the sign of Virgo, it means the moon is directly opposite the sun in Pisces. The sun represents our outer motivations, our drives, our passions, our desires to make use of the energy of Virgo, which is very precise, very productive, very grounded, very much about the physical world. We're being encouraged to really make progress with the help of the sun in that location. But the moon obviously represents very different energies. It's about our receptiveness, it's about our security, it's about our emotions. And the sign of Pisces, which is hosting it, is the 12th zodiac sign, which can be about where we retreat. So it's an extremely tender full moon. And what makes it even more tender on this particular occasion is the location of Saturn, which is just a few degrees away. So it's making it a very serious-minded full moon event. But what happens is when we have a new moon, the energy of the sun and the moon are integrated in a homogeneous way. When we have a full moon, they're not. They're actually representing two different energies, and in a way they're competing. So it can bring into the open this particular full moon, the Pisces full moon, anything to do with a psychological, emotional or spiritual nature that's not finding its voice through the practical dimension of the sign of Virgo. So in other words, we could be very focused on getting physically fit, Virgo, being very organized, Virgo, making sure that we do a job well and efficiently, Virgo. But if we're not feeling it, if we feel disorientated or alienated or excluded or lonely or very sensitive, and that energy is not being heard in that physical plane, we're going to have a problem. So next up, I'm going to share with you what a super full moon is. So what is a super full moon? Well, from planet Earth, it's when the moon is at its closest point to the Earth, so it amplifies its physical impact. It doesn't actually change the astrology one little bit at all. It may be from a mythological or spiritual dimension. Some people may relate to this having more power, but certainly the neat astrology, it doesn't change. Now, the next super full moon is going to occur on September the 18th, 2024, and that happens to be a lunar eclipse. It will also occur in Pisces, of course, but it will be very close to Neptune. So whereas this full moon, very close to the stern Saturn, the next one occurs to the very drifty, dreaming energies of Neptune. But what is a blue moon? Well, a monthly blue moon is when we get the second blue moon of the month. If you recall, on the first day of August, we had a full moon in the sign of Aquarius. So that's why we have this concept called the blue moon. Ironically, it doesn't look any different, so it doesn't look blue. So what's particularly unique about this Pisces full moon this year? Well, as I've flagged all year, this was going to be a full moon that could be challenging for health services and resources. If we think about it, the sign of Pisces can be very compassionate, but also it can be where people give and give and give, and then they reach the point where they feel they can give no more, and actually can, in some ways, if you think of the fish, swim the other way and have a need to separate in order to protect themselves. So the coolness and coldness even of Saturn could see people pushing back if they feel that they've really given absolutely everything of themselves in order to help people. This could happen in individual relationships, could happen in an employment situation, but I definitely think it's happening in health services. We are seeing, certainly in the United Kingdom, a lot of pushback against changes to pensions, pay rises which haven't kept pace with the rate of inflation, but really quite worrying, less and less physical resources to deal with mental health or to deal with people who have or are experiencing very real poverty. So the practical side of the sun in Virgo is looking for that mythical perfection which doesn't exist, but I feel that what Saturn's going to do is reveal the reality, the emotional reality of where we are as a collective at this time. And if you are someone who's very much into keeping the stiff upper lip up, this could be a little bit of a challenge over the next couple of weeks. If you're someone who's much more interested in integrating your health, this can be an opportunity to find some treatments, enjoy some massage or spa days, or getting out in nature, because that actually can in itself be hugely therapeutic. I also feel that we are going to see a spike in COVID. Again, I had predicted this all year. Part of the reason is that Mars, the planet of passion and drive, is now in Libra, but it's technically debilitated there, and it's in a quincunx with this moon and also Saturn position. Now, obviously, the sign of Libra very much likes fairness and balance, but if people don't feel heard, that's going to up the militancy. The other thing, of course, is that Mercury is in a retrograde. It is forging a very exciting and potentially positive angle to Uranus, which can ask us to look at situations in a fresh way and try to rework or remodel our routines in a way which is beneficial to us. But I think essentially what we're trying to do is make sure that we bring the emotional, spiritual and psychological domain into our practical circumstances. Or if we're someone who's very much focused on the feeling side of life, always remember that if we are well organized, we eat well, and we get the nutrition we need, that feeds the soul and the brain too. So this is the opportunity, but also perhaps the challenge of the next 2 weeks. So Aries, the opportunity for you over the next 2 weeks and the first 2 weeks of September is to use the energy of your ruler Mars. If you can embrace this, this is going to help you to set your boundaries, because this is a full moon which is very much about being understanding of where you've been very responsible, supportive, conscientious, but perhaps to the point where it's not necessarily being appreciated. And it could even be that someone's being a bit picky about some other part of what you're trying to do and not appreciating the sacrifices that have been made. So with Mars there on your 7th house, but feeding in to the event, it is all about just when to say no. And also in terms of your own personal situation, if your physical vitality or even your spirits have been running a little bit on the low side of late, the angle between Uranus and Mercury, despite Mercury's retrograde, is pushing you to rethink some part of your approach. It may be that something that's a bit stuck just actually needs to be disengaged from and in some ways be recommenced, but with some kind of fresh adaptation. So it is there for you to really work with this energy in a very constructive way. And if you are someone who is a little bit resistant to looking at some of your vulnerabilities, this is definitely an opportunity. But around your relationships, I think it's all about feeling appreciated and respected, but also feeling that there is a high level of trust. And if you sense that someone has not necessarily got your back, that's something, that instinct, you really should listen to that. So Taurus, the opportunity for you over the next 2 weeks is really to invest in your talents, your creativity, and create the conditions to enjoy yourself. So that could be for your social situation. What's not to like? Well, it's just simply that, as we all know, we can't please all of the people all of the time. And it's possible that one group, alliance or network or friend are proving a little bit too demanding just at the time when you are wanting to focus on what's important to you. Mercury is retrograde also, of course, in the 5th house, which can be about your social life and your romantic situation. Uranus is applying to it in a fresh and bright way. So I feel there's a sense at the moment that you want to follow your more, your instincts. And yet there's Saturn saying, look, you've got to be dutiful, do consider other people. Also, in terms of a love relationship, Saturn's asking you, is this a tie that you see progressing to the long term? If you feel it really is going to be part of your future distant situation. If it isn't, I think Uranus applying to the retrograded Mercury could see you think again and think more about just following what you need to do for yourself. So time management is important at the moment, but there may be some sensitive decisions that you do need to make. So Gemini, for you, I feel that Mars is very influential. It's in the part of your situation to do with showcasing your charisma and talent, but the Sun and your ruler Mercury in retrograde are more muted, asking you to consider the more emotional dimension, whereas the Moon is right high in the sky, very close to that rather steely and cold energies of Saturn. Is it going to be that you're needing to deal with someone over the next couple of weeks who doesn't quite get what you're trying to showcase with Mars, which is your charisma, your talent, your flair, even your personality power can really be emphasized by Mars. But is it that you're trying to influence a situation where someone tends to react in a very traditional way? They're not really seeming to be very open to what you're needing. Now, the 4th, 10th house axis that's on this particular event does mean that even if you're wanting to work on some issues very much to do with your home, emotion, family, security, it may be that some worldly demands are still coming in, or there is that someone you have to deal with who's not very responsive to your flair. So a bit of a tender time, and certainly if you are wanting to work on something to do with where you live, there could be some delays and frustrations simply because of Mercury retrograde, but also because of Saturn. And also, when the Sun moved into the sign of Virgo, it was immediately opposite Saturn. So this 4th, 10th house energy, quite challenging as well. But patience is always something that can give us a reward, and that's what Saturn's really asking you to do. If there is something that you're wanting to make your way towards, a target or goal, persistence is going to be important at this time. So Cancer, the next couple of weeks put a lot of focus on communication. Now, we all know that Mercury, the planet of communication, is retreating at the moment, but it's because Saturn and Neptune and this particular full moon are all in house 9. That's more about our higher philosophies rather than just the everyday chat. So if you are needing to send a message, prepare a document or a presentation, attend an interview, or think very carefully about travel plans, things could seem quite slow and not really giving you a flow in the way that you would like. But there are some opportunities here. Mars is in your 4th house. If there is something that you really yearn for in terms of your home environment, this can give you even more added tenacity, something you have a huge gift for. Also, with Uranus angling brightly to Mercury, there could be a friend who, or a concept or a cause that really is giving you a lot of inspiration, and this is helping you to think about your longer term plan in a bit more of a left field way. So certainly approaching old situations that may have been a bit stuck with a new and fresh approach could actually really pay dividends at this time. So Leo, the opportunity of this full moon is that because Saturn's involved in applying to the moon in the 8th house, it may push you in a way to scrutinize your circumstances, your affairs around shared resources, things like financial planning, you know, whether it is to do with pensions, savings, property matters, getting things evaluated. So Saturn could bring that colder edge, but it can also bring that scrutinization that's very realistic. And then that can influence your approach to your everyday situation, where we're all feeling that change. But because Uranus is applying to Mercury, despite its retrograde, in such a brilliant way, remember that you're a fire sign. You have passion. You also have Venus still in your sign. Your personality power often pulls good things to you. So there may be that something does need to be reevaluated, learnt from, maybe some flexing or changing or adjusting. But I also think some opportunities, particularly professionally. It may even be that there's a competing offer that's going to come your way. With Mars in your 3rd house, your everyday communicational skills are really boosted by that. And as we go further into September, Mars is going to be linking fabulously with Venus in your sign. So as we go forwards further on over the next 2 or 3 weeks, your ability to be very enthusiastic, but also persuasive and charming can definitely hold you in great stead. So Virgo, the next couple of weeks could see you right through to the 15th of September rethinking or reworking a plan that maybe you're finding you do need to be flexible around, partly because of Mercury's retrograde, but also because of the role of Uranus, which is really urging you to try some novel and fresh approaches. Mars in your 2nd house is also asking you to be very mindful of money. But on the other side of the heavens, the people or persons that you need to connect with could seem preoccupied, detached, irritable, even a little bit cool. So the thing I would say about the next couple of weeks is don't assume with anyone's support. You may be focusing on something that is vitally important to you, but it's still important to explain what you're trying to do. And with Mercury in retrograde, it's not certain that your message will be heard exactly as you mean it to be. So Libra, on the 25th of September, the Sun's going to return to your sign, and we have Cardinal Quadrant 3, and that is a really big deal, really exciting. But the first 2 weeks of September are really a preparatory stage, and whether it's from the physical plans that you're putting together or the research you're doing, or in terms of just dealing with demands in your everyday world, try to limit any extra obligations or demands. Mars can help you, it's in your sign, can help you push back if anyone's taken your generous and fair nature for granted. But I feel generally this is a time to rest, recuperate, and try to find ways to embrace any form of healing at all. That's the opportunity. Astrology is all about cycles. It may not sound like a very sexy overview for you for this 2 weeks, but it is an honest one, and it's just preparing you ready to launch forwards in a very dynamic way on that autumnal equinox. So Scorpio, with Mercury retrograde in your sector of sociability, networks, connections, friendships, future plans, I think it would only be natural if there was some changes planned last minute. But because Saturn is opposite this particular full moon, going across the same axis, for you, 5th with the position of the moon and Saturn, and of course Neptune and the Sun and Mercury, it may be that your longer term future is something you are thinking about. Maybe you're wanting to take more seriously, Saturn, some of your talents, or maybe you don't feel you quite have the physical wherewithal to find the spark to make the changes. This is quite a complex full moon, to be honest, and a lot of the reason for that is not just Saturn. It is because Mars, your traditional ruler, is in that quincunx with Saturn and the moon, and for you in house 12. So that can stir up a lot of very deep emotions, some resentments. Your emotions can be very close to the surface as well. So whether it's in your love life, your social situation, friendships, or those future hopes, it may feel that things aren't quite flowing as you would like. Patience and the passage of time will do more than strength and fury at this particular juncture. So Sagittarius, something that's really important to you, a big goal, a big hope, could seem somewhat stuck in the first 2 weeks of September. Am I being negative? No, I'm being truthful. But by the 15th, when Mercury goes direct and we have the new moon in the sign of Virgo, in a real flashing inspirational link to Uranus, suddenly it can all step forwards, and by the time of the cardinal quadrant 3, the autumnal equinox of the 25th of September, what seems to be so frustrating at the present time can suddenly happen. So what do we do to deal with the current situation? Well, obviously with the Sun and Mercury in retrograde in your 10th house, it's very much about your worldly role, but it's also important to make sure that you're feeling comfortable from an emotional viewpoint. So anything to do with your home or your family will be part of what informs how well you feel things are progressing. But there could be some resetting, some rethinking. And it could be that there's an opportunity, and that opportunity comes through Uranus applying to Mercury. So you could rethink something, even if it's your relationship to the issue. The issue itself may stay rather out of sight at this moment, but if you rethink your relationship to it, it will help to deal with a period of time that for collectively us all, it could feel a little challenging. So Capricorn with Mars right at the top of your scope, that's adding an extra layer of confidence and assertiveness. But because the full moon for you is in house 3 and combines with your serious-minded ruler of Saturn, and the Sun and Mercury in house 9, Mercury in retrograde, it's very much about expansion, adventure. It could be that you're going to have the self-confidence to project whatever you want into a situation and could be successful. But dialogue, how messages are heard and exchanged, are areas that could go a little awry over the next couple of weeks. So I feel if you use that confidence in a patient way, use all your experience of knowing that things don't necessarily go exactly in the way that we want or at the speed that we want, your shrewdness, your wisdom can help you to overcome what could be a little bit of a blockage, especially around travel plans or a contractual matter, but by the middle of September, things can really start to develop in a much more exciting way. So Aquarius, your two ruling planets are very influential on this particular full moon. Saturn applying to the moon itself, and Uranus in a trine, which is very enabling to Mercury in its retrograde in Virgo. But for you, the Sun and Mercury are in house 8, longer term plans, things that change, things that make way, new things that develop, very much to do with transformation, also in a more physical sense, longer term money, whereas the position of Saturn could test out your level of self-worth. Now, it's easy for us to think that we gain our value through the material world, and the important thing over the next few weeks is not to be tempted to veer from that more idealistic side of your nature. Mars is in your 9th house of freedoms, adventures and expansion, but it is forging an awkward link with Saturn and the moon, so it's probably not the best of times to be very free and easy with resources, but it probably is the best of times to become more informed about how you can marshal things. So I think you're going to gain a lot of insights into your values, perhaps needing to make some adjustments around your budget and costs, which could be a good thing if it squeezes out a bit more surplus. But equally, you may encounter someone who sees things very differently to you, and that's where Mars in the 9th house can really see you frustrated if you feel that someone's not being particularly fair. But once we get through to the 15th of September and the new moon in Virgo, I think things will start to fall into place in a much more providential way for you. So Pisces, this full moon is in your sign. You're going to have that lunar eclipse on the 18th of September next year, also in your sign. That one's alongside Neptune. This one's alongside Saturn. Both of them are in your sign at the moment. So it's big stuff, this. And because Mercury is retrograde in your sector of relating and boundaries and contracts and where you connect with people, listening and sharing, the potential for misunderstandings is obviously quite ripe, and Saturn in your own sign could see you, particularly if you're born early in Pisces, could see you feeling a bit dispirited, a bit mistrustful perhaps of some of the things that you're being told, hard to really have much trust at the moment. And because Mars is in a part of your horoscope, a lot to do with desires, balancing what you want as an individual with that deeper desire, 8th house, not easy. So a potentially testing time, but we do have Mercury in that flashing angle to Uranus. There's still opportunities to rethink things. Your natural flexibility can be very good for you at the moment. And perhaps what Saturn's doing is asking you actually to distill everything down, to focus on what's essential and get rid of all the external things that are not really very important. If you just go what's really key, I think it can be about relationship issues, and it's just about trying to keep the lines of communication open as best as possible, and also trying to work very hard on hearing where other people are coming from, and not so much the words they use, but actually checking that they're comprehending in what they're saying to you in terms of understanding what you're saying to them. So if a relationship is really weak, it could fall over the next couple of weeks, but it could also get an awful lot stronger